All right, welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen, and this week, a very special guest, Mr. Thomas Carlucci. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Hello, Joseph. Glad to be here, and I'm ready to go.
It's our pleasure to have you here, and we're going to do a little deep dive into your career. You've done a lot in the world of professional wrestling, that is for sure. And why don't we start off, I guess, by just kind of telling the fans what your position was exactly. We'd see you at ringside. You were there usually next to the commentators, sometimes near the Spanish announce team. You had the headset on. It was more of a producer or a floor manager type of role, I guess.
Yeah, I was a floor manager. I started out with the Spanish announce team before it was Carlos and Hugo, and we had Tito Santana there for a while, but Carlos and Hugo were the mainstays there. And the job as a floor manager is to make sure that my commentary team has the right audio, their headsets are working, they have the right information that's going to be tossed at them during the show rundown. Kevin Dunn was our live producer, executive producer. He was the guy doing the line producing. That's what we call in the business, line producing. And he would tell me what was going on, or Vince would come on once in a while and say, I want these guys to say this. Most of the time, Vince was working with the English guys. He wasn't working with the Spanish guys unless there was a spot there for the Spanish guys. But I had to just, first and foremost, make sure the headsets always worked. Make sure they had the right information, what DVD are pushing, what magazine we're pushing, or the attendance at the show. I would hear that from Kevin Dunn. I would write it down, put it on a 3x5 card, put it in front of Carlos or Hugo, and they would do it. And also security around the ring. I would talk to security beforehand. Back in the day, when we were going at it with WCW, guys would have WCW shirts, and what I would do is have a stack of shirts underneath my under the table and say, guys, if you want to sit there and you're in the first row and you're opposite the hard camera, meaning the hard camera can see you, which is that camera that you see when they all raise up. That's camera 2, they call that. But if they're facing and they have an NWO shirt or Sting shirt, you got to take it off, dude. Yeah, I mean, we're not promoting WCW. That's when it was ugly back in the day, and they were kicking our butt and everything. But even in the beginning, any other shirt besides WWE, we wouldn't put up with that. And it was my job to make sure they took that shirt off and put the other one on, or signs promoting. Back in the day, toll-free lines of wrestling, kayfabe this or whatever the phone. Nope, that doesn't happen. Either Kevin would tell me to get the sign or I'd have security get the sign. But that was part of my job, watching out for that. Also, job as a floor manager, and I don't think they do this anymore. When a superstar comes in the ring to cut a promo for coming out of commercial break, usually they know they're coming out of break because the screen is black, the Tron is black. Kevin would cue them. I would tell them before show, I'm going to be the floor manager. I'm going to be in front of camera too, but I'm going to be low so you can't see me. And I would show them what kind of signals. This would mean stretch or wrap it up, pointing to you to go or slow down or something like that. That was the way it is back in the day. I don't think they do that anymore. I think the boys are so good now that they do it on their own. They do go off a little bit like that. But inside there, which we called the corral, where we had Tony Chimmel and we had Mark Yeat and then we had our audio guy there, and I had an audio A2 there because if anything went down or if a headset went down or if a box went down, they'd have extra ones to put in because look, if some of our pay-per-views, you don't have Spanish commentating, people complain and then they would want their money back or whatever, but you had to be buttoned up all the time to make sure you were ready to go. Started out with the Spanish guys, then I moved over uh, to the English guys, working with Vince for a while. I worked on a show called Shotgun Saturday Night. I don't know if you remember that show.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we had a wrestling ring inside of a nightclub. I sat next to Vince, and That was interesting, but I really had to make sure there was, security around him, anything happened, and, back in the day, before the IFBs, before the refs had the IFBs, they would, when we were going to commercial break or something, they would look over to me and, I would do this, and they'll tell me you have 2 minutes and then 1, and then once I put my hand down, we're in break, and then if we're going to a finish, in the show, I would have a pencil and I would bite it.
Oh,
The
okay.
ref would look at me, and he would know when to go home. They don't do that, they have IFBs now, so
Sure.
but that's how we did it back in the day.
Now you mentioned Shotgun Saturday Night. I feel like that show has a very nostalgic feel. It wasn't around very long, but a lot of people remember that show specific. Why do you think that that show didn't really last? I mean, it was an intimate setting, always, like you said, in a nightclub or at a bus terminal or whatever it may be. It didn't last
Yeah,
very long.
so it didn't last long because of the affiliate. I think it was, in it was WOR back in the day here in Channel 9 in the tri-state area, and, Saturday night's a bad night to have something really. People go out, people not gonna stay home, especially in the summertime or whenever we did the show, I can't remember, but it was just not convenient, and I don't think they were getting on, a really high license fee for it, so it cost us more to produce the show and put it on than it was that we were getting paid, and Vince would take that shot. No, Vince wasn't afraid to spend money back in the day, so, I think that was a couple of parameters of it. We had fun doing it, but, we had to work, so, our call times were early. We had to go in the city, and, Vince would have a production meeting, and, here's what's going on. I remember the guys like the Headbangers were there, and had fun with all the nightclub people and stuff like that. I think just the longevity of the show and the night it was on, because Saturday night's not a really good night for TV because a lot of people go out. So I think that was probably the financial part of it, and the risk of the affiliate saying, "Look, this hour that we're on is not worth it for us." So that's probably why that ended so quickly.
And you've got the floor manager job going. It's a job you love. You have a passion for this. At the same time, it's gotta be a high stress situation with so many points to hit at so many times. Everybody's all eyes are on you, and, if you miss your step, well, that can cause a ripple effect for sure. What was it like working directly under Kevin Dunn and being in a high stress situation like that?
Working for Kevin, wasn't the easiest, but, you never take anything personal in his business. I mean, he would if you did something wrong, he would rip you big time, and, he had no problem doing that. And by the way, the same time, you have Vince on headset too, so Vince could jump in and say anything he wanted to me, especially when I was working with the English guys and JR and King and Michael Cole back in the day and stuff like that. He would always come in and say to Michael, say this, say that. And if Michael never responded, he would come to me and say, Tommy, I want you to write this down and put it right in front of Michael Cole. And I would put the card in front of him from Vince, and then he would know to hit it right away. It's hard when Michael was commentating, and then you hear somebody talking in your, I want you to say this, this, and this. I mean, it takes a while to learn how to do that. Michael was good at it, but it took a while. JR was great at it because he was used to, because of the history of what he did back in the day. But that's why I was there. I was the liaison between the executive producer and the chairman ringside. So that's a lot of pressure, making sure my headset works, making sure they have everything all set, making sure I don't give them anything that's wrong. So you do have a lot of pressure. And then you're dealing with the crowd too. You deal with the crowd also with security. Who's trying to lean over while there's an on camera? Who's trying to, tap them on the shoulder? Can I get an autograph? Who's trying to do this or that? So I'm responsible for that. And inside that area, with me, Chimmel, and all those guys, it was called the corral. And that was like an inside terminology where it was just us in there, and then we had a couple of security guards. There's more security now than ever. We had two guys I think we had, but I was responsible for that to make sure, you know, if somebody wasn't doing something right or somebody had an appropriate sign and I can't get to it because we're on live TV, I would have to, give the signal to the guy and just point, or he would come over behind me and I would tell him. or during commercial break, I would go in the crowd, and Kevin would say, "I want that sign, that sign, that sign," and I had to move, get off headset, run, go off, go on the hard camera side or on the opposite side, and grab the signs and take them away and come back on headset before the commercial break was over. So, I loved it. I loved the feeling of live television. I couldn't work backstage where they would do pre-tapes of, the boys and whatever action there. I loved being ringside. I was part of, the live show. I'm there. I'm sitting there. Whatever table spot happens or whatever issues they have or whatever's going on in the ring, outside the ring, near our area, I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal, and it's kinda, an adrenaline pump I had. It's like, "All right, it's game day, boys. Let's go and, make sure we're all set and we're ready to go." So it was a great, I mean, I had the best seat in the house too. I mean, the things I saw back in the day, I was part of the Montreal screw job. I was there for that. I was there when Mick fell on our table, uh, the Hell in a Cell, him coming off the top with Taker. I was the first one to be there for Mick when he took the jump off, just to make sure he was okay, and he wasn't. And that's when um, I signaled to Kevin, said, I think he's pretty messed up. And that's when Vince and all the trainers came out. And then I'm done after that. That's when they take over and do stuff like that. But it was an adrenaline rush, Joe. I loved it. I loved working it. I had no issues at all. I can deal with anybody. I'm a pretty big guy, so I have no issues dealing with anybody as long as I didn't put my hands on anybody because I represent WWE. Um, that would never happen, but as long as I had the security there to help me, and, I had a great relationship with Michael Cole. JR was tough sometimes, but he was fair. And I had a great relationship with him, Lawler, Michael Cole and Lawler. So, I mean, I was friends with Michael. We used to travel together. It used to be me, Michael, and Coach back in the day. So we had a lot of fun. It was good, but I got to tell you, it's a lot of work. I was on the road for 6 years straight. So that's
Right.
that's that's a big deal. I was there for a cool time. I was there for the whole Attitude Era, '96 to '02. So I seen everything happen from that time there. So
Well,
we
it was
we
getting much
had,
better, isn't it?
yeah, it was cool, man. I was a big part of, a lot of action and a lot of history going on in that ring.
Now, were there any close calls, where there's a big spot and maybe you get caught up in it or not injured, but,
Yeah, because when I was at the Spanish table, the way they had the table set up now is they have it fixed, so it's just, if you just touched it, it would fall. Well, it wasn't like that back in the day. When they had the red top table, if you and it was me, and we would know when the spot was coming, and they had these, hairpin pins, like, with the round, and alls we had to do was pull when we knew the spot was coming, pull the pin, and he pulled the pin, and Carlos knew when we were getting the Iggy to do that, pull the pin, and then soon as, like, Sean's climbing the cage and he falls and the table just collapsed. Well, one time, I forgot which pay-per-view it was, I think it was at In Your House. Sean's climbing up the cage, and we pulled the pins, and the freaking table collapsed on our knees, like, it was
oh,
ready to go. So we had to hold it up with our knees, and I'm like, "Carlos, what the hell are we gonna do now, dude? We can't leave early because the table's gonna drop, and now we look
right.
like real the jabronis, you know what I mean? Table collapsing, what? Nobody even touched it. How the table collapsed. We held it long enough that, when he came down, I was supporting it with my hands. I just pulled my hands away and my legs away, and the way he fell, it was perfect. It ended up somehow, Joe, it was perfect, and you never even knew that that table collapsed. That's the closest it's ever come for us, because, as you know, back in the day, it was a rib that, the Spanish table would always go. Every
Right.
time there was a pay-per-view or, something need to happen on Raw, or, when SmackDown came along, and stuff, mostly pay-per-views though, it was a rib, on the Spanish guys, mostly,
Uh,
about the table spots. But now the tables are so nice now, they don't do anything. They're there, and there's not even a floor manager. If you notice, the floor manager is not even sitting next to commentators anymore. He, like, sits
right.
by the bell. He sits over there, but I guess it's a lot different now. I'm not sure if all these guys get all their information beforehand because there's always something happening. There's always something. See, with me, when I was working on the English commentator table during the Attitude Era, Kevin would have Nitro on at the same time in the truck. So if we were going to commercial break and Nitro went before us, we wouldn't go to break. Like we kind of knew when the break was coming. We'd have it on the rundown, and Kevin would say 30 to break, 20 guys. We're not going to break. Keep going. That's important stuff to let them know. And I had to make sure they knew on a cue card if they were into the action talking and they don't hear Kevin. Kevin say, Tommy, make sure we're not going to break because we want to get that crowd. Because what people do, they would channel surf. If there was a commercial break on our stuff, they go to Nitro. If there's a commercial break on Nitro, they come to WWE Raw, and they'd hopefully stay that way. So that was the kind of stuff we did. Obviously, there's no competition, and it's on Netflix. Totally different story now. So
Yeah.
I think things have changed 1,000%, that the responsibilities of a floor I don't even like I said, the floor manager doesn't even cue the boys anymore. So it's it's a layup for them. I guess most of the thing is to make sure the headsets are working at all times. And sometimes the boys go over, you see it all the time. They go over and you got to make sure the first thing you got to do is get the monitor up and make sure the headset's working. That's the first thing you got to do, no matter
Sure.
what. So, but
Seems
it's a
like it was
lot different than it
definitely
was. Yeah, it was a lot different than when we were there in the '90s and
right.
early 2000s, so
More complex back then for sure, and you were
oh,
holding it
yeah.
together at a time where it was just, a lot more intense. So,
Yes.
so rewinding a little bit, growing up as a fan, what was your first interaction with pro wrestling as far as, your first memory, or when did you discover it?
Uh, I'm from Stamford, Connecticut, right? And excuse me, and, my father, took me, it was the Norwalk Crystal Arena. This is I'm gonna tell you how ironic this is. Norwalk Crystal Arena, small arena, and there was it was WWF. Buddy Rogers was there, Freddie Blassie, Baron Mikel Cicluna. I'm giving some real olds. Gorilla Monsoon was there. And the great story about Gorilla Monsoon is we were in the first row. And as soon as Baron Mikel Cicluna came out and he leaned over the top rope and came and he got in our face, I got up and ran. I'm like 7 years old, something like that. I got up. I stood in the back. Well, when I was in the back, Gorilla was there and he's watching the show. So he has his glasses on and the beard, and he's menacing as ever. And I'm looking at him and he's seeing me and he does one of he goes like that. And I just freaking ran. You know what the ironic part of that thing is? I met the man years later on when I started at WWE. I became his driver when he became the president of WWE, and
Oh, wow.
he treated me like his son. What one of the most the biggest thrill I've ever had in my career, and, I've said this before in another podcast, is when Gorilla died, we went to the wake. It was me, Kevin Dunn, Chris Chambers, a producer, and Maureen, his wife, told us to come in the back, and the place was mob packed. And she brings us to this back room, and she goes, "I just want you guys to know Gino wants you and Kevin Dunn to be pallbearers." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like,
Wow.
the history of Gorilla Monsoon, of everybody, the old school '60s with Freddie Blassie, Bruno Sammartino, all George the Animal Steele, all of them. He owned part of the business back in the day with Vince's father. The ironic part of that, from that guy being at Norwalk Crystal Arena and years later, me being in the same car with Gorilla Monsoon just blows my mind. And he was incredible. And I was a pallbearer. Me and Kevin were pallbearers along with Bobby Heenan, Shane McMahon, and a bunch of old school guys. And that I know you know about Gorilla's book that's out.
Absolutely,
Uh,
with Brian R. Solomon.
yeah, I'm in the book. He interviewed
Oh,
me and I'm in the book. There's a bunch of quotes from me and a bunch of other employees and people that knew him when he came to 120, our TV production studio. The greatest guy you ever wanna meet, and, I miss the guy every day, but the ironic part, in the '60s, He's coming at me. I'm a little guy, and in the '90s, I'm in the car with him.
Right.
That you can't write that stuff, dude.
What was Gorilla like behind the scenes? Off camera. Was he quiet or was he a storyteller? What was he like?
Gorilla was quiet, um, very business oriented, very old school. Uh, he would sit down and talk to the boys about stuff and how we're supposed to do this or do that. I mean, he was a big right hand man for Vince Senior for years. It was him, Skolin, and a couple of other guys. I can't remember their names, but I know that for a fact. Um, but he was low key, and you know what, Joe? He had the respect of the whole locker room. Everybody respected him because where he came from, what he did, how he did it, and he did it the right way. And if you don't take advice from Gorilla, it's not like taking advice from Mickey Mantle when you're coming up to bat or something like that. That's what
Right.
kind Gorilla was. He was a fun guy. In the car, he used to tell me stories, and he couldn't come to my wedding, right? I got married in 1990. He couldn't come to my wedding, but what he did was he was a huge casino guy, a huge gambler, huge love playing blackjack, big time. And he invited me and my wife to Caesars in Atlantic City, and when we got there, we were in the high rollers room. We were with him the whole weekend. He was in a blackjack tournament, and we did what we had to do. He said, how about we meet? It was a Saturday. He goes, "How about we meet? Come downstairs 6 o'clock, and we'll go get something to eat." I'm like, "Okay." So we meet him at 6 o'clock, and we went to this Japanese steakhouse, and the line was like 2 miles long. I said, "Gino, man, we ain't getting in there." He goes, "Tommy, watch." Walks to the front. The maitre d' says, "Mr. M." He goes, "I got your table." Bam, sat right down. I mean, that's clout, man. That's amazing stuff. And that's where you just sit there and talk about, life and the business and everything that he did with it, and excuse me. He was a very interesting man. Him and Kevin Dunn were really close, they were tight, and, he was a great man, and he had the respect of the whole TV production and the road crew and the boys back in the day. Nobody did not like Gorilla Monsoon.
And all these years, we've had the legendary gorilla position. Do you remember when that actually was named the gorilla position?
When I started there, that's what it was, so I don't really know. He ran it back in the day. That was before when I was on the road. I'm going, back a little more. I started in '88, so it was the gorilla position then, but I was strictly working in the production studio in 1988. Matter of fact, I wasn't even in TV production then. I started out in the shipping department. I went to the School of Hard Knocks. I worked my way up WWE. I didn't have any college education. I took a shot, and I didn't know it was WWE at the time. It was called Titan Television. I had no idea until I interviewed with HR, and I started out in shipping, but I always liked TV production stuff. I was always one of those guys that liked radio, went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, all that stuff, but nothing ever panned out. But what I would do after my job would shut down in shipping, I would go to the production. I'd go in edit suite, sit in there, watch these guys how they edit, write stuff down. And I got the opportunity to get in production in 1990 or 91 when Vince wanted to start. I don't know if you remember this, the WBF.
Oh,
It was
yes.
the World Bodybuilding Federation, and I was a PA. I knew how to log tapes. 8 hours a day logging these jugheads, doing weights and everything. It was boring, but I got 2 years out of that, and then it folded, and Vince spent a ton of money in there because the bodybuilding, it just didn't work. It didn't work, and Vince gave all these guys guaranteed contracts. That was the only way he was gonna get in the business, and that pissed off the boys because back in the day, they didn't get guaranteed contracts. Nobody did. So, that was a little heat with that. Lost a ton of money off of it, and then from there, I got into international TV, and I was in the international television department from '92 all the way to 2020, and I worked my way up from PA, PA 1, 2, associate producer, producer. senior producer, supervising producer, managing producer to director, and my last title was senior director, international television, and I had about 20 kids under me, and it's strong as ever. It's a huge department. It's strong as ever right now, and I'm proud of it. So I was like one of the guys that worked. My buddy George, who works there, and he's still there. He gave me the name the ladder because I just worked my way up, and now you can even get that opportunity today because everybody needs college. You got to have a communications background. Did you go to Syracuse, Quinnipiac, or whatever? I was lucky. 88 was a lot different than it is in 2025. So I was lucky. I had a great career. I made great money. Uh, it was just a shock when I got let go, and it was due to the pandemic, and they were cutting back, and but that's the way things happen, and that's where I am today. So it was a great career, and I really enjoyed it. I don't have a negative thing to say. I know there's a lot of employees that have things to say about Vince or his situation now, or Kevin. I would never say a bad word about any of these guys because they gave me the opportunity, and you had to work your ass off to get in the position you got in. And it wasn't for those guys putting me or promoting me and seeing the hard work, I would never be where I was.
What was Vince's vision for the WBF? What did he want that to become eventually?
Storytelling, same thing as wrestling. He gave the guys characters. He gave theirs. He would look at each individual, and they would have their own characterization. Like one guy was the monster something, and this one they had their own music. They had uh, incredible staging, and because bodybuilding never had any of that, and that was the goal for Vince is to storytell and to create controversy between some of the bodybuilders, but it never really panned out. Here's the problem with bodybuilders, and I noticed that, when we were working there, they do 2 shows a year. That's it. And when they're not working, they sit home and they get fat. And when it's time to get ready again, they do what they gotta do. And, sometimes they take vitamins that they're not supposed to be taking, and that's why you see the bodies that it's probably one of the dirtiest sports ever. I hate to say that, but, it just didn't pan out, and, like, we had a pay-per-view in Atlantic City, and actually Donald Trump was there. Regis Philbin was the host, but we had to pad the crowd there because nobody cared about bodybuilding and watching these guys do this. The second year, it was in Long Beach, and we had maybe 400 people there, and we had to pad it again, and, um, some of the boys had to get off the juice, and they didn't look right, and that's when, Vince says it was a 25 to $30 million debacle, and, he took a shot. He went against the Vince McMahon of, bodybuilding, Weider, and it didn't work. And, that's when he got out, but he was willing to take that chance. Like, he wanted to see if it could work, and at the time, it seemed like a great idea. Gave me an opportunity to get in production, so I was happy with it, and, it from that point on, uh, when it didn't work, Vince moves on. "Okay, we lost, let's move on, and let's stay what got us there," and that's, was pro wrestling, although he never called it pro wrestling, he called it sports entertainment.
Right. Well, you don't know until you try. I mean, you got to try things out.
Yep, absolutely.
You mentioned security a couple times. So, security teams, any personal memories of Jim Dotson?
Yes, yes. Didn't he used to wear his hat on backwards? Was
He
that
did.
him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Jim. He was a quiet guy, pretty big dude. Um, didn't know I mean, never hung out with him after the show, or he was probably he was probably on the road, but he was a no nonsense guy, I remember that, for security. He didn't take crap, and he took it very personal to protect Vince or anybody else, especially ringside with the boys there. He was ready to go at all times, so he was a great guy, uh, in great shape, but really he was a mellow dude. You look at a guy like that, you think he's like a bully or anything like that. Far from it. Really great guy, had no issues with him at all. We knew what kind of signals we had to go back and forth with, and, he knew I was the floor manager because I was at TV every week when we did it. So, we had a great rapport, and if there was any issues, I would come over, he would, say, "Hey, is this okay? Or this guy, you want this guy out?" Or no, he was great.
And what was the atmosphere like backstage? More so, I guess, in the '90s in comparison to more of the modern era. Did it really change backstage, or was it kind of the same?
I think it was more competitive than ever in the '90s. I think, now they're just buddy buddy, and that's why the product is the way it is, and this doesn't seem like there's any real competition or, backstage, everybody's buddy buddy. It wasn't like that back in the day. The issues with Sean and Brett, but there was a lot of Road Dogg, these guys, some of these guys just never got along, and it was a little bit of a wild, wild west back there. But the agents had to take control of that. But I think today is totally different. Everybody's just friendly, and social media is just out of control with the way. Uh, the characterization of the characters, and then you see them in social media. I think social media helps and it hurts a lot of the characters, and I'll give you an example. The Wyatt Six, when they came out, right? We waited 3 months or whether they come out, they look friggin' awesome, it was great. Hours later, they're at Whataburger, and they put it up on social media, how to make them like, and they're all sitting there like, you just blew your gimmick, guys. It was more kayfabe back then. I mean, as you know, everything's wide open now with
Sure.
Unreal, and not that I agree with this stuff because I'm a little old school guy. I like that stuff. You never. One thing Vince ever said: you never want to kill the illusion behind the curtain. Like you don't want people getting behind the curtain. Once you get behind the curtain and you find out, what's the sense, right?
Yeah.
You wanna keep people anticipating. It's not like that anymore, as you see, as you watch Unreal, and I think Unreal is a work also, uh, because they're letting you know what they want you to know. I mean, you see Triple H sitting in that writer's room and all those guys. I mean, do you think he really acts like that? Come on. I mean, it just doesn't happen, but people who don't know the business or how they work through it, or what happens and writing and everything, they're giving you just that much and everybody's going, "Oh my god, look at this," you know?
Yeah.
So, it's a lot different than it is today, and that's why I think they have some of the issues that they have.
Right. Well, like any reality show, it's kind of, no reality show is truly reality. So,
No, not at all. No.
what was your first interaction with the McMahon family? What was the impression of meeting the McMahons for the first time?
Um, I loved working with Vince. I was with Vince for once he got to know me when we did, Linda was my first boss. I was in shipping. She did my first review. She was one of the smartest women you ever wanna meet and nicest women. Don't cross her, but, uh, very understanding. I knew Shane, when he was little, and I knew Stephanie when she was little, and I watched them grow up right in front of my eyes. So, but working with Vince, I loved it. When we did, uh the Shotgun Saturday Night, I was his floor manager, and once he gets used to you, you gotta be with him all the time, and I was with him a lot. We did a show, Radio WWF, I don't know if you remember that, that was years
Yeah.
ago. I used to sit in the audio suite with him and be like his producer in there while the audio guy's producing the show, and before JR took over or after JR, I can't remember, but it was Vince, me, Lord Alfred Hayes, and I think Johnny Polo came later on. And I had a great relationship. I just knew I would stand in front of a bus for that guy. I got to tell you, man, and he knew that too, and he appreciated. And all through the years, as the WWE got bigger, he recognized me. We had a great with my family. I mean, my wife worked for the company at one time. My daughter worked for the company at one time, and my son worked for the company at one time. They're no longer there. My wife got let go a couple of years ago. My daughter left when the pandemic happened, and my son just quit because he's a professional drummer and he's on tour, right? now with the Pop 2K tour for Ryan Cabrera, so it was kind of a music thing for him. But he got to know the Carluccis, and, whe as WrestleMania got larger, we used to do this thing, and I don't know if you know what it is, the Business Partner Summit, and, I would always be assigned to Vince. So when Vince would come, I'd sit next to him. This is work what it was telling you what the company's doing, how we're going, where we wanna go, and it'd be all the sponsors coming in, potential sponsors, affiliates, and we'd be in this big ballroom. And Joe, it would look like we were, setting up for a Monday Night Raw. Big Tron, superstars there, unlike anybody trade show that you would see where we have New Day coming out, we got music entrance, we got this, we got that. And I'd work with Vince, after when we would do our rehearsals and stuff like that, and then it would be called the Vince rehearsal, where I would sit next to Vince. I'd be on headset, the producer's producing the show, and I'm sitting next to him, and he would hit me on the side and say, "Hey, I want this," or "I wanna talk to Mark," who was producing back then. So but he trusted me. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
He knew it was me. He knows I would take care of him, make sure his pencils were there, they were sharp, make sure he had coffee there or whatever he needed, his protein bars or whatever, had to make sure everything was all set for him. He trusted me and he always wanted me with him, and that made me feel great. Here's the chairman of the company, and here's a jabroni like me, and I'm sitting next to this guy here. Like, when it was show day, he would come out and introduce welcome everybody, introduce them. Well, when we did the Vince rehearsal, we actually run through the whole show with Vince sitting there. I played the part of Vince. Welcome everybody, and
Oh.
he used to rib me to death, man, just yelling, "Hey, you," whatever, Vince was a big ribber back in the day. So, it was fun for me to do that, and the fact that he trusted me and the fact that Kevin Dunn put me with him because he knew just to satisfy Vince. If I was there, he was happy. So I had a great relationship with him. I had a great relationship with Linda. Got to know Stephanie later on and really got close to Shane because as the years went on, I was running international TV production and Kevin was my boss, and then I had some other bosses that were over me too, but I was running the production end of it. So anything that and Shane was the corporate international guy. So he ran everything over there with affiliates or marketing groups or anything like that. If he came in had ideas for shows, I would talk to Shane maybe twice a day. We had a great relationship, and then I would liaison to Kevin and see if this would work out for any way, but that was I had a really tight relationship with Shane, not so much with Stephanie, but I got along with Stephanie great. We had no issues at all. I would help her when we were floor managing or when she was coming out to make sure she was protected at all times, and she trusted me also, but my real relationship was with Vince and Shane.
And you mentioned your wife, she was, with the company for 36 years?
36 years, yep. She
36
was there,
years.
yep, I started January 11th, 1988, and she started January 26th, something like that, and she was responsible, for the whole road crew, and we're talking 150 guys. We're talking lighting, camera, audio. She did everybody's travel, and that was a crazy job to make sure they got from city to city, especially in the wintertime. So she was a one-man show, and she did it all working with because WWE has their own travel department, and, she would work liaison with 3 different travel agents, make sure all these guys got there. If it's 4 in the morning, our phone would ring, and she would have to do something or whatever, and do stuff internationally also. So she was there 36 years. She was a director when she left there. They just dissolved her position when new blood came in, and they just seemed wanted all the old school guys out of there. And that's a travesty because there's a lot of good guys that are not with that company anymore that are really, really talented, and that sucks, but it is what it is, and, they gave her a nice severance, just like I had a great severance, so, it was no issue at all. Obviously, it's a shock when you do the same when you're working for 36 years for the same company, and all of a sudden, they tell you your position is dissolved. It's like, it's devastating. When it happened to me and Kevin called me up, and I can tell you what happened. We, as you know, COVID hit, and it was like March, April. The company shut down, and I got put on furlough. So me and a bunch of employees got put on furlough where you weren't getting paid. You couldn't use your computer. You have access to your phone, a company phone, and it was for 6 months. And it went from April to July or August or something like that. And then they extended it again. And then on September 9th, I remember the date. Kevin called me up and he said, I got good news and bad news. I'm like, just tell me, Kevin, what's going on? He goes, well, we're gonna have to let you go. He said, but I'm gonna give you a great severance package. He said, and we love the work that you did. He said, but if things pick up in 8 months, I'll definitely bring you back. And I knew that wasn't gonna happen because the other 2 guys that got it with me were senior guys, working in master control, and one was the senior and SVP of, editing. He was a great editor. Um, those 2 guys got it, and I got it, and we all knew we weren't coming back at that point. And that was I was messed up for a long time. It took a good 6 months for me to get over it because it was a rat race for what I did, but I loved my job and I wasn't ready to retire. And, it was tough. The pandemic was tough for me. I still looked for a job even though I was getting paid, and I coulda did that, but the whole country was shut down. I coulda had an offer with, Sirius XM, but, they didn't wanna pay, and I wasn't gonna go in the city with COVID, and they didn't wanna pay my train from Stanford to New York. I think it's like $450 a month or something like that. They didn't wanna pay that, and the money was nowhere near the money I was making at WWE, and I looked hard for a year, and I decided to retire. So I retired, and, here I am today, and, couple of years ago, coach, maybe year and a half, coach called me up and he said, "We're really tight." He said, "I wanna do a podcast." And he goes, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Yeah, I can do it. I'll produce it." He goes, "No, no, I want you to be the talent." I'm like, "Are you crazy?" I said, "Me be the talent?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We can talk old school stories, us traveling. It's something different." And he goes, "Tommy, we were there. A lot of people who do podcasts have no clue what's going on behind the scenes, in production meetings, or any of that. We were there for all of it." So I did it, and that's where we are today. It's called Behind the Turnbuckle. We do a show called The Last Word. After we're on hiatus right now because Coach does so many different shows that, he's on Sirius now, and he does a show called it's Coaching Company. It's a bet sporting show, and we go over sports. We do a Monday Night Grind. So he decided to take a hiatus from, uh, from the wrestling thing, The Last Word, but we have premium members, and we do watch-alongs and stuff like that, but we're coming up full again right after the football season. So we'll see how it goes, and here I am today. So, but, it was a rough road. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It hit hard when COVID hit and then you're out of a job. It's like, wow, where do you go from here? So it was tough.
The WWE Hall of Fame, I'd like to touch base on that. It's something that it's kind of strange because, certain guys go in, certain guys don't, and you wonder why sometimes. So I was a big fan of what the Warriors said years back, that the Jimmy Miranda Award should be a thing moving forward and getting some of the backstage people involved. And what's your take on that? Do you think that different parts of the company belong in the Hall of Fame or just what you see on television?
I don't have a problem with it. Um, I don't know if it's good for, it being on live TV. I know, you know, showing that award on live, or maybe you could do it like they do in the Grammys, other categories, and then bring it up later. There's some tremendous employees at this company that gave their heart and soul to it, and, I think it would be an honor for employees to get in some sorta Hall of Fame there, and, uh, I think as a company, they're not gonna do that now. There's no way they're doing that now. The way the company is run now, TKO, it's totally different the way Vince and it's a money hungry company now with Shapiro and Ari and Nick Khan and all these guys, and the prices of, events are just outrageous. It's all about making money and covering their nut for I don't know how many billions TKO's in debt or what, but you could see it. I mean, I read a lot. I read up on a lot of things, so totally different the way the McMahons ran it, the way Vince ran the company, and, that thing but you probably will never see that again because they don't care. They don't care if you had 30 years there, 20 years or whatever. They just move on. There was no personal like, with Vince, even though he was the chairman, I worked with him, he'd be talking, "How you doing? How's the family?" This and that. Like, you'll never get that anybody. You'll never get that out of Nick Khan or anything like that. The executive producer of, who took over for Kevin, Lee Fitting, I know guys that are working there, they maybe seen him 3 times. So,
Right.
what does that tell you? You
Exactly.
know? Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but it ain't gonna happen now. I gotta tell you that right now.
Yeah. Another long-time employee, the first official contracted employee, the late great Howard Finkel. Any personal memories of Howard over the years?
Oh my god. Howard, are you kidding? He was the best. I mean, he used to smoke those little cigars, man. He used to drive me crazy. But we had a softball team, and me and him ran the softball team in Stanford. And they people loved Howard when they come to the game, and Howard would be coaching third base in his khaki pants. Oh, he was a trip, man. His khaki pants and the baseball uniform, and we had a pretty good team, as a matter of fact. But the memories, his his knowledge of the business is incredible. We'd be in a production meeting, and Vince would say, "Howard, what happened on this day?" And boy, he would have it right then and there. And he just catered to Vince. We'd have a almost an hour and a half production meeting, and Vince would always end the production meeting questions, comments, concerns, and everybody just wanted to get out of there to go to catering or whatever we were going or what, just to do our job. And we could always depend on Howard. "Oh, Vince." And we used to kill him, man. Great guy, not around long enough. He's in the Hall of Fame. He deserves it. The greatest ring announcer of all time. I don't care what you say. He was the best at what he did, and he took a lot of pride in doing that, and he did it well. He also did backstage pre-tapes too, when for live events and stuff like that. So he was involved with a lot of things. One of the greatest guys you ever want to meet. Funny. We had a great relationship.
I became good friends with Howard. He used to host all of my fan fests in the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and we were good friends for about 10 years or so. And he was so precise and detailed when it came to messages. And he would call whenever he'd call the house. Joe, this is Howard Finkel calling, and it's
Yeah.
a currently 10:04 a.m.
Yeah.
And he was just the detail that he would put into it was amazing.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Such a good guy.
Great guy. Yep.
We mentioned Jimmy Miranda. Any memories of Jimmy, who was a big part of the merchandising for
Yeah,
a
he
while?
was a merchandise, yeah, I remember Jimmy very well. He was one of the nicest guys you're gonna wanna meet, very outgoing backstage, all the boys loved him. Um, I just remember him I always remember him being upbeat all the time. I never saw him when he was down or anything like that. Always upbeat, if you wanted some merchandise, he'd give it to you. I never asked because I never did any of that stuff like that, but he loved me. We got along great. He's the one that would supply me with T-shirts and stuff like that for I needed for ringside and stuff like for the things that I needed. Great guy. He was with the company a long time too. I don't know. I started in '88, and I think he was there. I think he was there before me. I'm not sure about that, but I think he was. Did you know him?
I didn't know him personally, no.
Oh, yeah. He phenomenal guy. I love him. He died. I forgot what year he died. I remember when it happened too. Um, but really good at his job, uh, and the boys loved him.
Yeah. And one of the most respected referees over the years, the late great Tim White, cornerstone
Tim,
of the
Timmy White.
promotion. Really, I mean, all the respect that he
That was
had.
Andre's guy. That was Andre's guy.
Yeah.
Timmy
Any
White. I love
personal
Timmy
memories
White.
of Tim or the friendly tap?
I never went to the friendly tap. Um, Personal memories of him. I always remember him taking care of Andre, and that was his main gig. It was to make sure the boss was all set for everything, and he would say to me, "The boss is here. I gotta make sure I gotta take care of him. We back in Stanford, we had a van called the Andre van where Vince had a customized van just made for Andre, and when he would come in town, we would use Andre van to go pick him up. One time, Timmy couldn't come down here to pick him up, and they asked me to go pick him up. It was a winter. It was a February. I had to go to LaGuardia Airport. I'm driving the Andre van there, and I'm like, I'm nervous because anybody he doesn't know, it doesn't sit right with him. He knew Timmy. He knew, uh, how close they were. So I park, I open the doors, and it's freezing out, and he's coming out the gate, and he's coming out, and he walks outside, and he sees the van, and he points to me. He goes, "Over here." I had to get in the van, shut the doors, and I had to come pull up in front of him. He had a short sleeve, shirt on with his case and everything, and I thought he was gonna rip me, man. And he said, where's Timmy?" And I said, he couldn't make it. He goes, "I'm Andre. How are you? What's your name?" And I told him. He shook my hand. He covered it over 10 times over. We had beer in the back for him. It was back when we had those captain's chairs back in the day, the customized vans and everything. He had everything. He had TV back there. He had a VCR. He had everything. And the ironic thing about him is he sat in the back captain's chair, stretched his leg out, Joe. And back in the day, they had the engine covers in front of you in the van. His foot was flush against the engine cover. And I'm like, are you frigging kidding me?
Wow.
That's how big this guy was. And he would always go to the Greenwich Hyatt, but there was a French restaurant called La Bretagne, and he had his own seat there, and, the boys took care of him over there. So, Timmy was the best. Yeah, yeah, I knew about the friendly tap, but I never really made it there. I don't know why, I can't remember why, but the boys would always wreck it every time they would do something for Raw or something like that as a
Oh,
rib to him.
yeah,
He was respected big time by the boys, and, obviously, Andre the Giant, being with him, you get respect already.
sure. I had the pleasure of being there many times over the years. It's Cumberland, Rhode Island, about 15 minutes from my house. So, and I actually ended up being in one of the skits on Raw. I was just an extra for one of the times that they, trashed the bar, and just fond memories of that location for sure.
Is it around anymore, or they knocked it down, or is it something else?
It's still there. It's not the Friendly Tap. It's called the Tap now. It's new management. Tim's family doesn't own it anymore. They took all the memorabilia down. Tim sold it, gave it away. But they have a spot kind of designated, where Andre used to sit. It was his spot. So they're going to be highlighting that, I guess, and right at the bar and putting some pictures on the wall there in tribute. And I guess they do have some of Tim's memorabilia, so it's going to be going back up.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great.
I'm a little disappointed that they changed it from the Friendly Tap to the Tap. I was like, oh man, it's
Yeah,
not the Friendly Tap, but it is.
no.
It is what it is.
Yep,
The memories will live on for sure.
that's
Um,
for sure.
you mentioned your children both worked for the company at one point or another. What were their roles within the company?
My son was actually a PA, and he ended up going on the road and being a floor manager, believe that or not.
Wow.
So he took after me. He was a floor manager, and my daughter was a producer for domestic television. So she cut a lot of packages for Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views. She was under uh, great producer Adam Panucci, still with the company, phenomenal guy, talented as ever, one of the most talented producers you ever want to see. This kid is so talented, is that I think it was the Hall of Fame with Austin and Shawn Michaels, where they mentioned his name and said, you see those great packages in the show? That was done by this redheaded kid, Adam Panucci. Thank you for making me look so good. That doesn't happen unless you're really talented. He was really close to Kevin, super uber talented. She learned a lot off of him. Um, Again, she got let go during the pandemic, but she works for A&E now, and she's a supervising producer. My son's a touring drummer. He's on the road now, and he's been on the road a couple of years. He loves it, and he's doing great. So, he likes still being part of the business and everything like that. So he's floor managing at AEW. So
Oh,
he got
excellent.
'cause I'm really good friends with, uh, Tony Schiavone, and and I know who the supervising producer there, he used to work for WWE, Mike Mansouri, and I knew Mike, and, told my son, "If you wanna get back in the business a little bit, you're not gonna go back to WWE." So, um, he hit up, Mr. Mansouri, and, after a couple of months, they hired him, and he works Dynamite, and he works, Collision, and he works the pay-per-views, which works for him, so good for him,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
he's back in the business, he likes it.
What are your thoughts on having another, finally another, a B promotion on a large scale, AEW to kind of coincide with WWE? Because when WCW was purchased, as interesting as it was, maybe not great for business because you're taking the other options away. So it's nice to have other options.
I love competition. I think Vince loved it too. I think this company loses their edge when they don't have competition. At least that's the way we felt, as a company because the company it made you get ready for game day, made you the way Vince used to talk to us in meetings, like, "Guys, this is important stuff." We know with WCW, they had a hot thing going on with the NWO. All those guys left because Vince couldn't pay them because of, what was going on with the company, and, it makes you work 100 times harder when you're in competition, and I think AEW is a good product. I think it works for whatever Tony Khan wants to do. I think that it can get better, um, but, the king is still WWE, as you know. The money deals they put together for their licensing fee is just outrageous. It's just amazing the money they're making off of Raw and SmackDown, and now the PLEs on ESPN. It's just did you ever think this company would make that kind of money?
No.
I didn't, and I think it's all part of Nick Khan, give him credit, man. Uh he's a smart salesman. Let me just tell you that much about it. So, it's great deals, but, I like having AEW there. It gives you fans a choice, and I think they're coming up now where they might come up to WWE's level, so we'll see what happens. Not licensing fees because 'cause they're not making the money that WWE made for their product, for the license fee for Dynamite, and I know they have a deal with HBO Max and all that stuff like that. Not even close to WWE, but it takes a while to build a company like this, and, nobody has more money than the Khans, so, Nick not Nick, Tony and his dad, so, he can buy and sell half of those guys over there, any day of the week. So, you know, they want to flex a little more. They can flex if they want to, but I like it. I love the competition. I don't know how much the writers and Triple H, I'm sure Triple H likes the competition. We loved it. So, but today's a lot different than it was back when we were there.
So in the 90s, WWF was, they had working relationships with the USWA, of course, Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And at that time, it was kind of nice to see the different talents come on. I remember the Heavenly Bodies, defending the Smoky Mountain Championships on WWF pay per view, Survivor Series 1993, stuff like that. It was neat to see. And now we're kind of reliving that again today with TNA and with AAA. What are your thoughts on those new relationships and where they're kind of bringing those promotions to the next level?
I think it's great. I think TNA has a solid product. Triple A's. I'm not a big AAA fan because everything's a high spot to me. For some reason, I see everything and it's a high spot. And I was taught in the business something has to mean something for you to do it. You just don't do it just to do it. You have to tell a story in the ring. And I don't think those guys, they just one up each other every time. And I don't like stuff like that. I think if you if you have a match, like just sit and watch Taker and Shawn's first match. And you want to talk about telling story in a ring and how they did it and why they did it. Why am I jumping off of here? Why am I doing it? You go to a Triple H match, they're doing 4 somersaults, a backflip, and it's just I can't deal with that. But I understand the deal that WWE made because it's an international thing and a Latino thing, big time. It's pretty smart. TNA has a pretty good product. I wouldn't be surprised somewhere down the line where where TKO buys TNA. I could see that happening. So I like the competition. I don't think it would ever happen with Vince there. I don't think Vince would open his eyes enough to he would see them as competition, uh, and I don't think he would have did it. So it's really one of the smart things that the company did is open up the way they have to other companies.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Thomas, here. Part one. Thank you for joining us here, the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe here. And of course, stay tuned for more with Mr. Thomas Carlucci.